Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to when you want to go beyond the headlines, taking your sources, your observations, and really extracting those crucial nuggets of knowledge. Today we're diving into something fascinating sparked by a listener who had this really insightful chat with Google's Gemini AI. They noticed something, well, profound, a real shift in how Google is handling AI. It felt much more open, was the word they used, more open than ever before. And they pointed specifically to tools like NotebookLM and just the sheer AI power Google's putting out there, often for free. They saw it's a genuine change in corporate philosophy, not just marketing fluff. What really struck them, though, was Gemini's response. When they shared this observation, the AI didn't give some canned answer. Our listener felt it was remarkably authentic, really acknowledging the shift.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? That perception, that feeling they got, is absolutely spot on. As we looked into the source material for this, particularly a piece called Google's AI Openness Shift, it just jumps out at you. This isn't just about features. It's described as a crucial and very real shift in the philosophy of tool design. It's fundamentally changing the whole relationship between you, the user, your own data, and the AI itself.
Okay, so that's our mission today. We need to unpack this. We're going to explore what the sources are calling the Great Inversion. You know, this massive shift from Google being the world's public oracle to becoming more like your personal Savant, your own private intelligence amplifier. We'll break down what this new openness really means, and it's way more than just technical jargon. We'll look at the specific tools like NotebookLM that are making this happen. We'll try to understand the strategy behind Google's pivot, and then finally we'll explore the ripple effects. What does this mean for how you work, for the open web, and even for the ethics of these digital twins we seem to be creating? Strap in, because this really feels like a big one. It could change how we all interact with information. All right, let's really dig into this shift. For, 20 years plus, Google built this absolute empire. It was the world's public oracle. Think about it. Our default was, got a question, ask Google. It searches its massive index of the public internet, gives you answers.
Right?
The knowledge, the authority, it always felt like it was out there, inside Google's index, external.
Exactly, and that's precisely where this great inversion, as the source material calls it, comes into play. It's described as a truly monumental strategic pivot. Google's moving away from being just the gatekeeper of public information, that oracle, and towards becoming what's termed the premier enabler of personal intelligence.
Personal intelligence.
Yeah, it's not just a minor update. It's a fundamental re-architecting of the whole human-AI relationship. Deep stuff. And look, we need to be clear. This isn't just Google suddenly deciding to be generous. Our deep dive shows this is a really calculated, multifaceted response. It's driven by fierce competitive pressures and just a massive shift in what the technology can actually do now.
So strategic necessity, basically.
Absolutely. Strategic necessity is the exact phrase used. Think about it. You've got these incredibly powerful AI chatbots suddenly challenging Google's core search business. That's existential. And then you have rivals like Apple who are building these impenetrable fortresses, as one source puts it, around AI that's super focused on privacy, built right into the device.
Right, Apple's whole ecosystem approach.
Exactly. So Google had to react, and react in a big way.
Okay, so if I'm picturing this, it's like Google used to be the giant public library.
Right.
You went there to find answers from the world's books. Now it's becoming more like a bespoke research assistant who works inside your own private study.
That's a great analogy.
And this assistant uses your notes, your documents, your research to help you figure things out.
Precisely. It's not just pulling from the public stacks anymore. It's working with your curated collection.
The whole locus of knowledge shifts.
Fundamentally. And in doing that, Google's starting to offer what our sources are calling a cognitive operating system. Think of it as an environment where the AI reasons primarily based on your secure personal library of documents and data, not just the public web.
Okay.
And NotebookLM is presented as being right at the heart of this. It's the place where your private knowledge gets amplified by Google's AI.
Which brings us straight back to what our listener felt, that sense of openness. Because this shift means redefining openness itself in the AI world.
Yeah, exactly. It's much more nuanced than the typical tech definitions we hear. It's experiential.
So let's tackle that. When our listener, and maybe others, talk about Google feeling more open, what does that actually mean? Especially in AI, where that word gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah, that's such a key question. Because the source material really stresses openness isn't just, a simple yes or no. It's a spectrum. And it's absolutely vital to separate the technical definitions, the ones the industry argues about, from this experiential definition, the one that captures that profound shift in the user-AI relationship our listener picked up on. Maybe let's start with the technical side, just to lay the groundwork.
Okay, sounds good.
So technically, in AI development, openness is all about accessibility, transparency, and freedom. How much access do you have to the model's guts? We're talking software code, training data, the architecture, those learned parameters or weights. The more you can see and touch, the more open it is in this technical sense. So top of the heap, you've got open source AI. That's kind of the gold standard. It's defined by the Open Source Initiative, the OSI. And it gives you 4 key freedoms. Use it however you want, study how it works, modify it, and share it, even your modifications.
The whole package.
Right. But crucially, to really be open source AI, you need access to the preferred form to make modifications. For AI, that means not just code, but the model weights and detailed info about the training data, enough so you could potentially reproduce it or properly audit it.
Like getting the full recipe and the ingredients.
Exactly. That allows for true reproducibility, deep dives into bias, collaborative improvement. Think Linux, think Firefox, but for AI.
Okay, so that's the ideal maximum transparency. But you said it's a spectrum. What's next down?
That brings us to the middle ground. Open weights, or open foundation models. This is where a lot of the big players are now, like Meta with Llama, Google with its Gemma models. Here, they release the model's learned weights, those parameters, often with the basic code to run it.
So you can use it.
Yeah, developers love this. They can run these models themselves, fine-tune them on their own data, build new apps on top. It's powerful.
But there's a catch.
There is. These releases typically don't include the original training data or the complex code used for the initial massive training run. So you can use it, you can tweak it, but you can't fully audit it for bias from the ground up or reproduce how it was originally made.
Ah, okay.
That's why many experts prefer the term open weights. It's more precise. You get the cake, but not the full recipe for the batter, if you will.
Got it. And then the other end, the closed-off stuff.
Right. That's closed source or closed foundation models. Think OpenAI's GPT-4, Anthropic's Claude. Here, pretty much everything, architecture, weights, training data, it's all proprietary. Trade secrets.
So how do you even use them?
Only through a controlled gateway, an API, an application programming interface. The model runs on their servers. You send requests through this specific digital door.
Maximum control for them, minimum transparency for you.
Exactly. They control usage, monetization, monitoring, but you can't inspect it, you can't modify it, you can't run it yourself. Yet the sources point to OpenAI's own journey here, from a nonprofit aiming for openness to a very secretive, commercially focused entity. It kind of illustrates that end of the spectrum.
Okay, so that covers the technical landscape of open. But back to our listeners feeling that deeper sense of openness. What is that about? It feels like the core of this whole shift.
It really is. Because this form of openness, the experiential one, connects directly to that great inversion we talked about. It's not about your access to the AI's internals. It's about the AI's secure and trusted access to your world, your data.
Flipping the script.
Yeah, totally. Remember the old model. You query Google's massive public database. The authority, the knowledge source, was Google. The new model, and Notebook LM is a prime example here, is completely inverted. You upload your private documents, your personal corpus, and then you invite Google's reasoning engine to work inside that secure personal space.
So the AI becomes open to my knowledge.
Exactly. Open to your knowledge, your frameworks, your research. It treats your stuff as the primary source. That's a profound shift in the locus of epistemic authority, as the source puts it. It shifts from the platform back to you.
Wow. Okay, but if I'm giving an AI access to my private, maybe super sensitive stuff, trust is everything, right? How is that even possible?
Critical point. The whole thing hinges on trust. It wouldn't work otherwise. And this is where the sources introduce this concept of a trust API. It's not a literal API, but a kind of contract. The core idea, and this is key, is that the system is open to your data without being open with your data. Meaning, Google makes an explicit, repeated promise. The stuff you upload to Notebook LM, your docs, your queries, the AI's answers, is not used to train their general AI models.
Okay, that's the crucial bit.
It absolutely is. And for workspace accounts, it's not reviewed by humans either. This is a massive difference from many consumer chatbots, even Google's free Gemini sometimes.
Right, where they might look at conversations to improve things.
Exactly. So this trust API, this enforced privacy policy, is what allows you, rationally, to let a powerful AI into your private intellectual space. Without it, the personal corpus model just collapses.
And that's the openness our listener was feeling. It's about Google being open to their world securely.
Precisely. It feels authentic because it's built on that foundation of trust regarding your data.
Okay, but knowing how companies love buzzwords, could this just be open washing?
Yeah.
Using the positive vibe of open without really committing?
It's a fair question. The incentive is definitely there for companies to do that. But the argument in our source material is that Google's approach here is actually more complex. It's seen as a coherent dual strategy, not just cynical marketing.
A dual strategy. How so?
Well, on one track, Google is playing the technical game, releasing open weights models like Gemma that engages developers, researchers, encourages use of their tech stack like TensorFlow, competes directly with Meta's Llama. It's a play for the technical community.
Okay, that's one track.
Then on the other track, you have tools like Notebook LM, pioneering this experiential openness. This targets a different, very high-value group. Knowledge workers, researchers, enterprise users.
People like our listener.
Exactly. For them, seeing the AI source code isn't the main thing. The absolute guarantee of confidentiality, the ability to apply AI safely to their private data, that's paramount.
So two different kinds of openness for two different audiences driven by different needs.
Precisely. So the conclusion isn't that Google's just misusing the word. It's actively building and promoting these two parallel forms of openness. It's seen as a genuine and significant evolution in their thinking, moving from just giving answers from the web to giving you tools to build answers from your own world. That feels like a real shift.
Okay, so strategically it makes sense. How are they actually translating this into tools we can use? What's in this personal intelligence stack?
Right, the practical side. What's really interesting is that it's conceived as this integrated ecosystem. The source calls it a cognitive assembly line for knowledge work. And Notebook LM is positioned right at the center. It's specifically built for the epistemic architect, the researcher, the analyst, the creator building knowledge.
A person doing the deep thinking and then synthesis.
Exactly. And the whole thing is built on that crucial foundation of privacy by design. That's non-negotiable.
Okay, let's zoom in on Notebook LM then. What really makes it tick? How is it different from just firing up a standard chatbot?
The key difference, its defining characteristic, is that it's fundamentally grounded. It's designed as AI-first note-taking, yes, but its reasoning is explicitly tied to the specific source materials you upload.
Not the whole internet.
Exactly. Unlike a generalist AI pulling from everywhere, Notebook LM becomes a specialized expert just on your content. That architectural choice is everything for trust and utility in research. So what does it do? Well, core stuff. Generates concise summaries of really dense documents, provides specific answers to complex questions about your material, and crucially, as we mentioned, it backs up every single claim with inline citations.
Yes, the citations.
Little clickable links that take you right to the exact passage in your source doc.
That deals with the hallucination problem, right? AI just making stuff up.
That's the technical solution, yes. Google made a deliberate trade-off with Notebook LM. Give up the encyclopedic reach of the whole web in exchange for verifiable accuracy based on your sources. Essential for serious work. Plus, you can prompt it to brainstorm ideas based on your docs or reformat info into, say, FAQs, briefing notes, study guides, even project timelines.
That citation feature alone feels like a game changer for research workflows. But I heard there are other sort of more novel capabilities, too.
Yeah, they've added some really interesting things. The audio overview is one. It literally creates a mini podcast to AI voices discussing the key themes and insights from your document.
Seriously, like listening to my research notes.
Exactly. Imagine listening while you commute or work out. Transforms reading into listening. Great for multitasking. Another cool one is interactive mind maps. It visually maps out the key concepts and connections in your sources. You can click around, explore visually, and it even proactively suggests relevant questions based on what it reads in your docs, potentially sparking new lines of inquiry for you.
And getting stuff into it. Is that easy?
Seems very flexible. PDFs, text files, Markdown, website URLs, just copy-pasting text, and direct links to your Google Docs and slides.
Wide range.
Yeah. And capacity-wise, a single notebook can handle up to 50 sources, and each source can be up to 500,000 words.
Whoa.
So yeah, it can handle substantial projects. It's a serious research aggregator.
Okay, incredibly powerful. But let's circle back to privacy again, because this is the linchpin, isn't it? If you're handling sensitive client data, proprietary research, unpublished work, how can you really trust it?
It's absolutely the linchpin. The whole value proposition crumbles without that trust. Google seems to get this. They've built Notebook LM on what they call an inviolable principle.
Right.
Privacy. It's baked in with explicit guarantees and enterprise-level security. And the absolute bedrock is that no training guarantee we talked about.
Right. They explicitly say your stuff isn't used to train their main models.
Explicitly and repeatedly. Your source uploads, your queries, the AI's responses, none of it feeds back into training Google's general AI. That's the fundamental difference from consumer tools, even their own free Gemini sometimes.
Where human review might happen.
Exactly. This commitment means your secret sauce, your research breakthrough, doesn't accidentally become part of Google's next model update. And for professional users, using a Google Workspace account adds another layer.
How so?
It falls under the standard Google Workspace terms of service. All your data stays within your organization's legal and technical boundary. No human review. Protected by the same security as Gmail, Google Drive.
Okay, so that makes it viable for businesses, legal teams, academics handling sensitive stuff.
That's the goal. It positions it directly against other enterprise AI tools by offering that level of security and data residency assurance. It's their version of a digital vault for your knowledge work.
So it's not just general Google privacy settings. It's this specific hardened guarantee for Notebook LM that makes the personal corpus idea work.
Absolutely. Things like Privacy Checkup and GDPR are company-wide, but this targeted no-training promise for Notebook LM, that's the essential pillar supporting the whole strategy. That's the Trust API in action.
Okay, so Notebook LM is clearly the star player. But you mentioned it's part of a larger system, this cognitive assembly line. How does that work? How do the pieces fit together?
Right, because Google isn't just selling a tool here, they're selling a process. It's about the seamless flow between their core apps. That interoperability creates this really sticky ecosystem, right? The whole is greater than the sum of its parts because it embeds itself into how you actually create and analyze information. The sources map out this workflow for the epistemic architect, the knowledge builder. It typically starts with research and discovery.
So broad searching first.
Yeah, using Google Search, maybe with the new AI overviews Gemini provides to get initial summaries, find sources, or maybe using the Gemini app for brainstorming.
Okay, stage one, find the raw materials.
Then, curation and organization. You gather those papers, articles, web clips, notes, whatever, and you organize them in Google Drive, central repository in the cloud.
Makes sense. Get organized.
Then comes the crucial part, deep inquiry and analysis. This is where the great inversion really happens. You create a new notebook in Notebook LM, you populate it with your curated stuff from Drive or elsewhere, and boom. The AI's focus flips from the public web to your private library.
Right.
Now you have that deep, source-grounded dialogue, asking questions, checking those citations, finding connections within your material.
Okay, that's the core work. Then what?
Finally, synthesis and creation. You take the outputs from Notebook LM, the summaries, FAQs, timelines, and use them as building blocks for your final product, your report, your article, your presentation.
Or your podcast.
Or your podcast. Exactly. You might listen to the audio overview to really internalize it. The whole integrated process lets you sustain that deep, coherent line of inquiry. That's how someone could, say, produce a long, detailed podcast from one focused research session, like our listener mentioned.
It really does sound like a cognitive assembly line. Each tool hands off to the next. It's not just a collection of apps, it's a system.
It is. And it's a classic platform play. It creates a flywheel. Better search feeds Notebook LM, which makes the whole Google ecosystem feel indispensable. It's a different approach than trying to build one giant app that does everything. It's more like a flexible toolkit that you orchestrate.
This feels like it's heading towards something bigger than just apps, though. The sources mentioned a cognitive operating system.
Oh.
What is that exactly? Is that the next big platform war?
Yeah, stepping back, that's the larger vision. A cognitive OS isn't just AI in products, it's AI as the environment. Think of an agentic ambient environment. Something that understands your goals, coordinates tasks across different services, and goes way beyond just fetching information. It's about proactive cognitive orchestration.
So moving beyond simple tools.
Right. For years, AI was like smart reply, face detection, discrete features. A cognitive OS is more like an intelligent layer underneath everything, orchestrating workflows across your apps. The defining thing is its ability to handle complex, multi-step tasks based on your intent. Not just Q&A, but proactive, agentic behavior.
Agentic behavior.
Meaning the AI can take a complex request, break it down into smaller steps autonomously, plan how to execute them, actually do them, maybe using different apps or data, and then pull the results together for you.
Ah, okay. Like a real assistant managing a project.
Exactly. That's the cognitive orchestration piece. And Google's already building pieces of this, like Query Fanout. In the new AI search mode, it breaks your question down and searches multiple angles at once. Deep Search goes even further, running hundreds of searches to build a cited report.
So automating complex research workflows.
Right. These aren't just features, they're automated processes. It signals a shift where you're not just using AI, you're kind of working within an AI environment.
So even if Google hasn't slapped the Cognitive OS label on it publicly yet, this integrated suite, especially for knowledge work, is effectively functioning as one. How deliberate is that?
Oh, it seems very deliberate. A company-wide strategic direction, that seamless workflow we mapped out, discovery, curation, analysis, synthesis, that cohesive system for cognitive orchestration, that's not an accident. And you see hints elsewhere. Look at Google Cloud. They talk about agentic platforms for scale. They have a product called Agent Space.
Agent Space, okay.
And guess what? Notebook LM is offered as an out-of-the-box agent within that platform.
So it confirms Notebook LM isn't just a standalone app. It's a piece of a bigger agentic puzzle.
Exactly. The goal they state for these platforms, let business users talk to their data conversationally, bust silos between different information sources in a company. That sounds a lot like a cognitive OS. Google's leveraging its dominance in search, cloud, productivity apps to position this suite as the go-to environment for next-gen knowledge work.
But surely Google isn't the only one thinking this way. Are there challengers coming at this from a different angle?
Oh, absolutely. Google's path here isn't guaranteed. There's significant competition. A really interesting one is the AI search startup Perplexity. Their CEO, Arvind Srinivas, is very explicit. They aim to build a cognitive operating system, but their foundation isn't a suite of apps, it's the browser.
The browser itself.
Yeah. Their upcoming Comet browser isn't just for viewing pages. It's envisioned as a platform for answers and actions. The idea is you give it a high-level goal, research this topic, compare these products, book this trip, and the browser executes the whole session for you.
That's a direct shot at Google Search and Chrome.
Absolutely. And Perplexity's CEO has a sharp critique of Google. He argues Google's stuck in the innovator's dilemma. Because Google makes money from ad clicks on links, he claims they're fundamentally conflicted about giving you a perfect, direct answer that keeps you on the results page. No click, no ad revenue.
Right. The core business model problem.
He argues this creates an opening for a startup like Perplexity, funded by subscriptions, focused purely on speed and accuracy, delivering the answer directly.
So the battle is, will the Cognitive OS be a suite of apps like Google's building, or a single intelligent interface built into the browser, like Perplexity envisions?
That seems to be a central question shaping the next platform war.
Okay, so this great inversion at Google, it's clearly a massive strategic maneuver, driven by some serious pressure. What are the key battlefronts forcing Google's hand here? Why this pivot? Why now?
Right, looking at the why, stepping back, Google's basically fighting a multi-front war here. It's trying to defend its dominance, secure its future relevance. This whole reorientation is partly defensive against Apple, partly offensive against Microsoft, and partly this huge, risky gamble to basically eat its own lunch, cannibalize its search business before someone else does.
Okay, let's break those down. First, Apple. How are they a threat here?
Okay, so the privacy mode. Countering Apple's personal intelligence. Apple represents a huge long-term strategic threat. Their Apple Intelligence framework plays to all their strengths. Vertical integration, hardware and software, massive user trust, total control over the device. And their core value, privacy, becomes this structural competitive moat that's really hard for cloud-based companies like Google to cross.
How does Apple Intelligence actually work then?
It's this clever three-tiered system. Most stuff runs on a small-ish efficient model right on your device using Apple's own chips. Data never leaves. For harder tasks, data goes to something called Private Cloud Compute, or PCC. These are servers using Apple Silicon, but with cryptographic guarantees, basically. Digital proof that the data is processed securely, never stored, and Apple itself can't access it.
Wow, okay. Secure cloud processing.
Yeah. And then, only if you opt in, it can tap into external models like ChatGPT for really broad world knowledge.
So the big advantage for Apple is it can reason over your really personal stuff, emails, messages, photos, calendar.
Exactly, your personal context. It can do that safely because it happens on device or in that trusted PCC. Google's Gemini can't just scan all your private communications like that without a massive privacy backlash and breaking its own model. Apple can.
So how does Google fight back against that privacy advantage?
That's where the personal corpus strategy with Notebook LM comes in. It's Google's direct answer. Since Google can't really compete on that ambient, on-device life context, it's carving out a distinct niche, personal intelligence, based on your curated professional data, your work context.
A pincer movement, like the source said. Apple owns life context. Google targets work context.
Precisely. Notebook LM's no training privacy guarantee is Google's equivalent of Apple's PCC. It creates that safe zone for your professional and intellectual work. Google isn't trying to beat Apple at the on-device game. It's changing the battlefield to focus on high-value knowledge work, where its cloud strengths and AI grounding can shine.
Okay, strategic defense against Apple.
Okay.
What about Microsoft? They seem like a more immediate competitor in the business space.
Right. That's the enterprise front. Differentiating from Microsoft's Copilot. Microsoft is definitely the more immediate challenge, especially in the lucrative enterprise market. They're embedding their Copilot assistant everywhere. Microsoft 365, Teams, Azure, Windows itself. They want AI woven into every business workflow, leveraging their huge existing corporate footprint.
So how does Google respond?
Well, Google's strategy, while maybe starting more consumer-prosumer, clearly has big enterprise aims. Look at the decision to bundle Notebook LM Plus and other Gemini features into Google Workspace business plans at no extra cost. That's aggressive.
Yeah, removing the price barrier to get people using it.
Exactly. Accelerate adoption, compete head-on with Microsoft's offerings. But Google has a key differentiator here, rooted in its DNA search and web-scale information handling.
How does that play out against Copilot?
Microsoft's Copilot is mostly focused on a company's internal data, your emails, your documents on SharePoint, etc. Google's emerging cognitive OS is uniquely set up to bridge that internal knowledge with the vast real-time information of the public web.
Ah, connecting internal and external knowledge.
Right. Think about research-heavy roles. The ability to ground your internal analysis with external data is huge. Notebook LM, for instance, can synthesize insights from your confidential internal reports and relevant public web sources simultaneously. That's a powerful research capability Microsoft might struggle to match as seamlessly. Google's betting the future of enterprise knowledge work involves connecting what my company knows with what the world knows.
Okay, Apple addressed, Microsoft challenged. What about that third front, the threat from within, cannibalizing search?
Yeah, this is arguably the biggest one, the innovator's dilemma. Cannibalizing search to survive. Generative AI is an existential threat to Google's core business for the last 20 years. Search advertising, simple as that. These AI answer engines, they teach users to expect direct answers, not lists of links to click.
The zero-click search problem.
Exactly. The AI summary on the results page answers your questions so you don't click through to the publisher's site.
Which kills the publisher's ad revenue that relied on that click.
Precisely. And the impact is already being felt. Publishers are reporting huge drops in referral traffic from Google, 30%, 50%, even 70% for queries that trigger an AI overview.
That's devastating for online publishing.
It's an existential crisis for the ad-supported web. It really is. So Google faces this classic innovator's dilemma. It has to willfully cannibalize its own immensely profitable search advertising business to transition to AI before someone else disrupts them completely.
They have to risk killing the golden goose to survive long term.
That's the gamble. Rolling out AI overviews, the new AI mode, it's a high-risk defensive play. Remember the reports about Google calling a code red, bringing back Larry and Sergey? That shows how serious they view this threat.
So people talk about the death of search, but it sounds more like a transformation.
Unbundling is a better word. The death of search is hyperbole. What's happening is the unbundling of search. The old Google results page bundled many different user needs quick facts. Finding a specific site, deep research. AI lets Google unbundle these. AI overviews handle the quick facts, killing low-value clicks. Conversational AI mode handles exploration. Deep search targets complex research.
So breaking down the old product to build new, potentially monetizable AI services.
Exactly. Sacrificing the old clicks to build something new. It's painful, but necessary for survival in the AI era.
Wow. Okay, so this pivot by Google, driven by all these pressures, is obviously going to have huge ripple effects. What are the broader implications for us as knowledge workers, for the web, for ethics?
Yeah, the ripple effects are profound. This shift fundamentally changes what productivity means, what expertise looks like. It poses, as we touched on, a serious existential threat to the open web's economy. And it opens up this entirely new frontier of really complex ethical questions we're just starting to figure out. Let's start with the impact on knowledge workers. The augmented knowledge worker. Redefining productivity and expertise. This isn't just about doing the same tasks faster. It's about fundamentally reallocating human brain power. AI assistants are moving beyond simple automation. They're becoming cognitive partners, augmenting our intelligence, freeing us up
Freeing us up for what?
for the uniquely human stuff.
Hmm.
Creativity, strategic thinking, critical analysis, complex problem solving. Imagine the AI proactively handling the grunt work, scheduling, email triage, summarizing documents and calls, finding information.
All the stuff that drains cognitive energy.
Exactly. It reduces that cognitive load, lets you focus on higher value activities.
So the skills we need will change too, right? It won't just be about knowing facts.
Absolutely. As AI takes over more of the what and the how, human expertise shifts to the why. Critical skills become managing AI effectively, prompt engineering, asking the right questions, critical thinking, evaluating AI output, knowing its limits, and applying AI insights contextually to real problems. Like Microsoft's chief scientist said, the future might be less about raw speed, more about having interesting conversations with people and AI. Success comes from mastering that collaboration.
Okay, that sounds potentially great for individual productivity. But what about the ecosystem supporting all this? The open web. You painted a pretty grim picture there.
Yeah, that's the dark shadow, the web's unraveling, existential threat to the open web. The very thing that makes AI search useful, synthesizing info into direct answers, is actively undermining the economics of the content it relies on.
The parasitic dilemma.
That's what the sources call it. The old symbiosis was, publishers create content, Google sends traffic, publishers show ads, AI overviews break that loop, no click, no traffic, no ad revenue, publishers' finances get hammered.
But the AI still needs that content, right? To learn from, to synthesize from.
That's the paradox. AI needs a constant flow of fresh, high-quality, human-made content. But the act of summarizing it kills the business model funding that content creation. It's a bizarre feedback loop. If publishers can't afford to create quality journalism or deep analysis, the information pool degrades. It becomes stagnant, outdated, maybe filled with low-quality AI content.
Which ultimately makes the AI summaries themselves less valuable.
Exactly. It's potentially a downward spiral. This is already leading to lawsuits, regulatory fights, publishers arguing Google's abusing its dominance. We'll likely see this bifurcation in the value of information, the sources mention.
Meaning?
Undifferentiated commodity content, the raw facts gets hoovered up and commoditized by AI. But unique, human-led, insight-deep analysis, novel perspectives, trusted reporting becomes more valuable, probably funded by direct subscriptions, not ads.
A potential shift towards paying for quality content directly.
Seems likely. The ad-supported model for high-quality original content looks increasingly fragile.
Okay, and the last big ripple effect, the ethics. This idea of a digital twin. What are the concerns there?
Right, the ethics of the digital twin. Navigating a new frontier. When an AI operates on your personal data, remembers your interactions, learns your style, it starts to become a digital twin of your mind. Powerful, but ethically fraught.
The obvious risks are privacy and security, I guess.
Absolutely. An AI holding detailed records of your research, your strategies, your reflections, that's an incredibly valuable target for hackers, for misuse, data leaks, unauthorized access, even impersonation based on replicating your thinking style. Huge risks. But there are subtler dangers too.
Like what?
Bias and manipulation. We worry about bias in public AI models, but personal AI introduces bias from you. An AI trained only on your stuff, your beliefs. It risks creating this perfect, technologically enforced echo chamber, algorithmic solipsism.
Shielding you from different views, reinforcing your own biases.
Exactly. Hindering growth, critical thinking, and imagine an AI that knows your emotional triggers, the potential for manipulation, intentional or not, is chilling. Then there's autonomy and dependency.
Getting too reliant on it.
Yeah. As you build trust with this super personalized AI companion, you might over-rely on it. It could subtly erode your own critical thinking, your problem-solving skills, maybe even impact real human relationships if the AI's frictionless empathy feels easier than dealing with messy humans.
That's a bit dystopian.
It's a risk to consider. And finally, accountability. This is a huge unresolved issue. If your personal AI Reasoning on your documents gives you terrible medical or financial advice. Who's liable?
For feeding it the info, the company, the AI itself.
Exactly. Where does the buck stop? We don't have clear answers yet for these semi-autonomous digital twins. It's a legal and ethical minefield.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've gone deep into Google's big strategic shift, this great inversion our listener picked up on. From public oracle to personal savant, a revolution driven by necessity.
Yeah, and it's really a masterful play responding to Apple and Microsoft creating this new kind of experiential openness where the AI comes into your world securely with tools like Notebook LM. For you, the knowledge worker, the epistemic architect, this offers incredible new power, amplifying your intellect, freeing up your mind.
But as we've laid out, that power comes with big question marks,
Hmm.
huge challenges for the open web's economy. That parasitic dilemma is real. And these emerging digital twins raise profound ethical questions about bias, dependency, and responsibility that we absolutely need to grapple with.
Google's betting its future on empowering you to build your own answers from your own world, moving, as they say, beyond information to intelligence.
So for you, the listener, maybe the final thought to chew on is this. As these incredibly powerful, personalized AI tools become woven into your daily life, how will you actively ensure your digital twin genuinely augments your thinking, your creativity, your judgment? How do you stop it from just subtly reinforcing your biases or creating an unhealthy reliance? And maybe just as important, what steps can you take to stay connected to the messy, vibrant open web and not just retreat into a perfectly tailored, but potentially isolating algorithmic echo chamber? This shift, it seems, puts an even greater premium on your unique human wisdom and your discernment. Lots to think about.